I've just read out the number for your exposure to Russia. Is that the worst-case scenario, Tanate? Good morning, good to see you. Or do you expect it to be materially higher? And how quickly will you wind the business down? Good morning.
Hi. Good morning, Magnus. It's been a turbulent quarter in Q1. Having said that, I think if you look at our underlying operations, our results are actually quite resilient. If you look at our net interest income, it's actually risen in the first quarter. Some tailwind from rising interest rate. Our fee incomes is actually one of our strongest quarter in recent times, and our costs are actually down in Q1. And that has generated sufficient capital for us to absorb and contain the Russia situation.
I need to jump in here. I need to jump in here on Russia because, yes, results strong, but still 834 million euros in costs related to Russia risk. Can you guarantee to investors that that's the extent of damage emanating from the region?
Well, I think we are taking an assessment. Things can evolve, but as of Q1, we think we are appropriately provisioned for that. We are also reducing our exposure to Russia. I think in the last 60 days since the crisis has broken, we have already reduced our exposure to Russia by over €1 billion, and that de-risking and that reduction of risk to our Russian customers are continuing.
Where is your biggest exposure in Russia? What have you got left there, Tanate? What are you going to struggle to manage down?
I don't think we would struggle to manage. I think what we need is time for customers to repay us back. We have a split between onshore and offshore Russia risk. And what we do see is that our offshore Russia risk is reducing at a good pace.
Tanate, 7.2 billion euros in Russia-Ukraine exposure. Do you run those down or do you sell them?
We are actually running it down. So we have, as you mentioned, close to 7 billion euros, and we're down to roughly $1 billion less within the last 45 days or so.
Tanate, we've seen massive repricing in bond, equity and currency markets in the past 24 hours. There's talk now of the ECB raising rates. Let's talk about market dislocation and recession risk in Europe. Is it now a very real risk, and will you materially change any of your lending criteria as we go towards the end of 2022?
Yeah, so I think I think we mentioned before, we think rates needs to move up now in the Eurozone, and we expect that the ECB will respond shortly. Having said that, I think we have always been a conservative shop in terms of risk management. And if you look aside from the Russia risk, our book remains very solid. We actually saw very little risk cost in Q1. But having said that, we are looking at a scenario of stagflation in 2022. And we continue to be conservative and prudent in terms of our risk management. And if you see over the cycle, ING has managed its credit risk quite well.
Even so, Tanate, when you see days like yesterday, tell us what conversations with clients, with peers, what those have been like in terms of the sense of fear you're seeing out there.
It's a lot of concern by both retail and corporate customers. And I think what we have told them is that rates are rising, that we have gone through now a rotation from very benign market situation, very low and negative rates, to more positive rates, and that our customers, both retail and wholesale, needs to get used to structurally higher levels of inflation. And we do help our customers to make sure they can adjust to that new reality, and ourselves as well, of course, in terms of our business model. We have to adjust to this new, rising rates environment.
You've used the word stagflation. Andrew Bailey, some would say, told the truth yesterday in terms of what people can expect: double-digit inflation and a recession. If you're facing stagflation, is it just no longer possible that you will deliver a lending growth number of a growth of around 5% if your base case is stagflation?
It would be more challenging, and we would be, of course, more cautious in terms of extending credit. But we gave guidance to the market that we expect lending to grow between 3 to 4% over time. But we think, given where we see things in 2022,
so what is the deliverable number then? Is it 2% growth, 3% growth? What's the number for the market to expect?
I think what we say is we're on the lower end of that 3 to 4%, so around 3%.
Tanate, reports suggest that Wall Street may shrink bonuses by as much as 40%. Are you seeing something similar at ING?
We have a very different kind of variable compensation structure. Variable compensation is not the biggest part of our cost base, but of course, with the results, the way things are, it will be automatically adjusted based on what we make during the year. But it's early times yet. We only had Q1, so we'll see how that evolves over the course of the next 9 months.